Hello, Power Up Nation. I'm Pat Council, and I would like to talk about how to prompt your mind for success. Actually, I'm going to talk about that. And I wanted to talk about that because sometimes when I'm doing workshops or if I'm doing a webinar or masterclass or something, and if I ask, are there any questions? And especially if these workshops or master classes, if they're about goal achievement. And if I go, okay, are there any questions? Well, I have a hard time focusing. I have a hard time staying motivated. And so these are some of the challenges that people face when they are working on achieving a goal. Whenever you're working on something different, something new, something you've never done before, and it's going to cause your life to go to the next level, or it's going to cause you to step into kind of your genius zone. And what I mean when I say your genius zone, that's the zone that you step into because you've now been obedient and you're accepting your calling and you're super passionate about it. And so usually a kind of genius starts to come out. You start to get all these different ideas and things that you can do. And I've met people like that, and I constantly meet people like that, and they're excited that they know exactly what they would love to accomplish, and they're excited about it. And because they're excited about it, they have all these great ideas, and they start talking about, well, I could do this, and then I could do this. And they're just going on. And then you know what? They do nothing. And so the object of the game is to prompt your mind for success. In other words, to position your mind in a way such that you can achieve the goal, such that even though you know you're going to have challenges, even though you might be afraid, you will step out and step up to the plate and make something happen. And you'll get going. Because here's the thing. Any little step towards achieving let's say something that you're passionate about, or any step towards achieving a goal that you set that aligns with your calling, you deserve to pat yourself on the back for that. But here's the thing. I'm going to share with you how do you prompt your mind so that you can follow through, so that you can continue to follow through. Now, we hear a lot about affirmations, and I'm going to talk about that on another podcast episode, and maybe even on my YouTube channel. We'll see. But that's a whole subject in and of itself where I have to explain things. But what I want to say about affirmations is a lot of times people will repeat affirmations over and over and over. I am wealthy. I am smart. I am wise. I am. I am is extremely powerful. And we're not going to talk about that today because, as I said, I want to do a whole episode on that so that people can have some clarity on the whole I am concept as well as affirmations. However, there are people who say, well, if I am is so powerful, I've been saying these affirmations, but I'm not getting any results. Well, here's the technique that I have used for years. Once I learned about it, it is not a technique that I created. I got this technique from an author, John Randolph Price, and he's since passed on, but he was a minister, and he just really built something amazing as far as helping people understand not just who they are as spiritual beings, or their spirituality, but who they are just all around. And I love his books, and I think I have all of them. And there's one I couldn't get my hands on because it was out of print. But other than that, I'm pretty sure I have them all. So with that being said, one of the things that I learned from his books is a technique called outpicturing. Now, when you outpicture something, here's what outpicturing is about. Outpicturing is based on in-picturing. In other words, when you picture something, it is a given that it is going to manifest or show up on the outside. Okay. And that corresponds to, as a man thinketh in his heart, so is he. So whatever it is you're thinking, if you're thinking you're not capable, then your outpicturing, meaning your results, it's going to be, well, not capable, one where you're not capable, where you will not follow through, where you will not finish any project. Well, where even if you see yourself succeeding, you will shut it down. You'll stop working on it. You'll sabotage it. Why? Because inside, you're in picturing, meaning in your imagination, you allow your fear to cloud the greater part of who you are. And as a result, you become afraid and you don't do anything. And the thing about that, there's a scripture that says, that let no imagination exalt itself above God. And what it really means is that anyone who thinks that they're better than God or above God and they can imagine they're greater than God, well, that's just ridiculous. However, the other side to that is if you're imagining that you're less than, that's something that you're holding in your mind that is, in a sense, trying to exalt itself above God. Your fear is trying to override the abilities that God gave you, the power that God gave you, and which means it doesn't include fear, because it says God did not give us a spirit of fear, but of power, love, and a sound mind. So meaning, and of course, depending on which version of the Bible you read, sound mind is also interpreted as a disciplined mind. So the point that I'm making is that in order to prompt your mind for success, you want to spend some time with your imagination. Okay. Because this is a spiritual law that whatever it is you see, eventually that thing is going to happen. That thing is going to play out. Now, it's not about if you see pink elephants that all of a sudden a whole bunch of elephants who are pink are going to run across your path. But the other side to that coin is, because I believe in possibilities to the maximum, the other side to that coin is you could be watching television, you were thinking about a pink elephant, and all of a sudden you see a commercial or you see a show, and oh my goodness, there's a pink elephant. Even if there's a pink elephant in a frame on a wall, in a little girl's room that's pink. So, but that's, to the extreme. But like I said, I think in terms of ultimate possibilities that anything is possible. But when we talk about that, it is more so about anything that God has ordained, anything that God has put here. All of that's possible. So whatever it is you're thinking, whatever idea, whatever gift, whatever talent, whatever project you're working on, it's been ordained, especially whatever good thing. Okay. Whatever good project. And why would you want to hold that back from the rest of us? Because you may have something that's going to make our lives easier. Who knows? You may have this way where I can exercise for like 3 minutes a day and get back to doing these podcasts or writing a book and save me some time. So it's not that I don't like exercising. That's not the case. It's just that I have to make it a priority because I would much prefer to be, doing what I'm doing now, or coaching or doing a webinar or doing a workshop. I love doing those things. However, everything has its place and time. But with that being said, the point that I'm making, why would you want to hold back on that? So out picturing allows you to start to see some of the results. So when you know exactly what it is you want, you know exactly what it is you want to accomplish, you can use out picturing to succeed. And I think John Randolph Price called it out picturing because it's like a projector. You're projecting, you have a picture in your mind, but you're projecting your life into this picture, or you're seeing it and you're seeing the role that you're playing in it. Okay. So I don't know, for example, if you were going to buy a new car, it's easy when I use more physical things. If you were going to buy a new car, out picturing says in your mind, you see it, but you are seeing the role that you're playing. You're seeing yourself at the car dealership. You're seeing yourself walk around on the lot. You're seeing yourself test drive the car. You're seeing yourself driving the car, and you're seeing that car in your garage. So that's out picturing, meaning it's in your mind. You see it. You see yourself interacting as though it's already a done deal. And then it's going to appear on the outside and in reality. Okay. In other words, what we call manifesting or manifestation. So out picturing is something that's very powerful. And I like that phrase. Okay. And I like that phrase actually better than saying, manifest or manifestation. And the reason why I like that phrase better is because it just reminds me, it keeps it simple. It reminds me, hey, Pat, if you're imagining something in your mind and you're seeing yourself interacting with whatever this is that's in your mind, and you're seeing this thing and how it plays out, guess what? You're going to have it on the outside. It's going to happen. So out picturing reminds me that this is a done deal. It inspires me. And if there's something that I was afraid to do, it takes it away. Okay. Or I should say minimizes it. Actually, it takes it away. I'm trying to think of something that I'm afraid to do that I actually want to do. I know one thing that I don't particularly like to do. What is that? Bungee jumping. I have no desire to do that. And yeah, that's a little scary for me. But if it was something that I desired to do, I would imagine myself doing it. And then out picturing says, I see myself interacting with this thing as though it's a done deal. And it's going to be a done deal. Out picturing makes it so very touchable, tangible, and real before it becomes touchable, tangible, and real. Okay. So if you want to have success, that is one of the best ways to prompt your mind for success. You're telling your mind, this is what we're going to do. This is going to be the outcome. And so you're prompting yourself. And when you prompt yourself like that, I believe you're going to take some action. It works for me. It's worked for me every single time. And I like to share with people sometimes that I'm no different from the next person in that there are some things I just flat out don't want to do. And I've shared this on this podcast before, that if I could, I'd probably binge watch television for who knows how long, okay, probably not that long, but long enough. Okay. Because I like, watching TV, but my point is, but when I start out picturing the kind of outcome that I want, the kind of life that I want, the kind of lifestyle, even if you have a problem, even if there's something that let's say if you have a money problem, okay, out picturing works. And I used it, back in the day. Okay. Once I realized and found out what it was, and as I said, I love the phrase. It made it easier for me to do. And I would imagine this is going to work out. But I don't just imagine or say to myself, don't worry, Pat, it'll work out. I see the details of it. Okay. Sometimes you don't know what actions to take. So I don't necessarily see, let's say, the actions, but I see the outcome. Okay. I see, if I imagine, let's say, my bank account or something like that, and I imagine the money is there. Okay. And I see myself, it becomes very interactive. I see myself pulling that money out of the bank or doing something, whatever that thing is. So I would imagine that. And I can tell you, out picturing has worked for me every single time. It has never failed, ever. Okay. And I'm trying to think of a time when it did fail, but I mostly use it for business, for my goals. And you guys heard me talk about this, I think it was last week, or maybe it was Tuesday, a few days ago, And I talked about the whole fitness thing and getting back on track and that kind of thing. So you know what? I out picture. That's what I do. I use out picturing because as I said, I love just sitting in front of my computer, typing things. My mind is always coming up with ideas and things. And so I'm like, oh, wow, this is great. So I need to write that down. And so I'm always coming up with those kinds of things. So I love sitting in front of my computer. I love coming up with ideas to just kind of help people achieve their goals or to share something that might inspire someone. I love doing that. And I could do that all day and all night until I'm sleepy, until it's time for me to go to sleep. Okay. Which I usually go to sleep a little too late these days, but I'm working on it. So the point that I'm making here, you guys, is that out picturing, because of out picturing, I know, okay, you need to interrupt this because there's a certain picture you have in your mind, and it prompts me to do what I need to do so that I can succeed in that area, so I can achieve that goal. So with that being said, you guys, you can prompt your mind for success. A lot of times we don't achieve because we see the opposite of what we desire. We let fear kick in, and we look at the don't wants. In other words, I don't want this to happen, whatever that may be. I don't want that to happen. Or suppose this happens, and it's all counter to what you desire. Well, out picturing will take care of that. Instead of spending your time with that, spend your time, and as I said, treat your mind like it's like a movie. Treat it like a movie. You're letting that movie play out, and you are the star of that movie. And as you start to picture it on the inside, then eventually it's going to happen on the outside, or you're going to be prompted to take the necessary actions so that it can happen. So with that being said, that's all I have for you today. But I did want to talk about that because I guess I get to hear from a lot of people how afraid they are, or suppose it doesn't work, the things that I just mentioned. And I thought about this and I said, wow, let's talk about out picturing. And so I thought I'd share it on this podcast, and hopefully it will help someone who's listening to this and help put you back on track or keep you on track. Understand this: if you're not getting the results that you want, it's because you are focused on anything but the results that you desire. That's just how it is. Okay. Not because I say so, because that's how it's written. God wrote it that way. Okay. Remember, as a man thinketh in his heart, so is he. And the Bible even tells us when you pray for something, pray as though it's done. Okay. Call those things that be not as though they were. That's out picturing. Okay. So with that being said, you guys, I want you to have a magnificent day. And no matter what, do life with power, because you're built by design to win.